welcome aboard MV Geordie on this snowy Boxing Day. Let me give you a quick tour around. It is quite snowy. We got about an inch of snow overnight, and the whole harbor is just gorgeous out here. The bells are just ringing over at the carry-on over there, which is at the museum. And some of you who've been watching a while will have heard the bells many times. I'm just going to put you back on your perch here for a second and plug you back in because I do not want to run out of power here today. Well, I hope you've all had a fabulous holiday. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, happy Christmas and happy Boxing Day. For those of you who don't, I hope you had a fabulous couple of days wherever you are. I acknowledge that many people are without their friends and family this season, and I am. For instance, I miss my daughters terribly. They couldn't come out, of course. So my heartfelt sympathies and empathy for you if you're having to deal with that this season. And let's all hope that we don't have another Christmas like that next year. All right, I'm just going to say hello to a few people. So glad you're all tuned in. What do we got? Way back. Andy. Hello, Andy. Hello, Ardo. Hello, Lars. Lars asked about electric heaters. Yes, I have electric heaters here. We'll talk about heat quite a bit in the next little while because it's actually freezing. So there's quite a bit to talk about heat. Peter Nisbet. Yes, we are in for a cold spell. Reflex diesel heater. Again, we can talk about heaters. We'll get into that. Hello, John from South Texas. Do we have Christmas crackers and party hats? In the past, yes, we do have Christmas crackers, and I have friends. Some of you might remember Owen, who has a lovely little wooden boat. It's his thing to have party crackers, and I have to admit I appreciated that. But I haven't had party crackers in years. Hello, Thomas from St. Louis. Hello, Mr. Lumpkin. The Digital Mermaid. Hello from cold Fort Mac. Holy moly, it must be cold up there. Hello from Canterbury. Happy Boxing Day from Wedge. Hello, Patrick Jernigan. How are you? Okay, well, I'll catch up with that for now. I'm so glad to see people logging in. I have no way of telling how many people are here, but I hope there's a couple enjoying this on this Boxing Day. I realize that, thank you ever so much, Digital Mermaid, for the gift. Not sure if it's beer or hot chocolate. It might be hot chocolate this year, no doubt. -40 with the wind chill. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I just thought this might be a good time to sort of get together, so to speak, in the virtual pub that I consider MV Geordie, and sort of touch base with how this year has been. What a year it's been, hasn't it? Oh my gosh. And what might be moving on to next year. I mean, everything is always a hope. You never really know what you're going to be doing, especially under the current conditions around the world. What a year it's been. Of course, for those who've been following along for a little while, you'll know that you all were so very generous to get MV Geordie actually mobile this last year. I mean, technically, the fundraiser went up late the year before, but having an engine in MV Geordie is just so amazing, especially when it's an engine you can just push the button for the rest of my life and rely on. It's fantastic. It's been a huge game changer. New fuel tanks, the massive haul out this last spring, if you've been following along that long, just gave me so much more reassurance in the boat. And it's just amazing what this year has been in terms of the confidence, knowing that I'm going to be able to move forward with everything I want to do with the boat. I see on the screen all kinds of stuff going by, so I should probably pay some attention in case there's some questions on here we should really look into. Scrolling back for a minute. Hello to all of you. Hello, Ed Black from Ohio. Hello, Jim from Wisconsin. Hello, Jeffrey Steerl. Sorry about that. The Beard Den Photography from Edmonton. Icebox of Canada. Yeah, well, maybe not as cold as Fort Mac. Susan Meldal, how are you, Susan? And Port Angeles, I can almost wave at you. Just about through the snow. I didn't realize you were in Port Angeles. Hello, Scott in Indianapolis. Hello, Gopher Kev in Massachusetts. Okay, all kinds of amazing stuff. Oh, people tell me how many people are on. 167. Thanks so much, Don. I guess that's what that number is. Is Big Bad John still open? It is. You're asking for two reasons probably. Is it open in the grander sense? In other words, has it survived all these years? When I first got here, it was famous for having like peanut shells everywhere and a fair amount of women's undergarments hanging from the walls. That's probably the place you're thinking of it. Yes, it's still there, slightly tidied up. Is it open now? I'm not sure because the regulations are changed every day. Restaurants are closed. Bars are closed, restaurants are open, pubs are sort of in the middle. In other words, if it's food, it's essential service, so it's open. I'm not going anywhere. Can you believe it? I live right downtown in the middle. I can walk to 15 pubs in 10 minutes. And I have decided with some friends, including Lady Z, that we're going to establish a very small bubble of 4 people and do nothing for the next little while. I don't want long COVID. I just don't want it. So yes, it's still open. Hello from Arizona to AP. 171 coming in. Thank you so much, Grendel. Chris, hello from Port Orchard. Abby Floyd, hello Peter. Hope you are well. Discovered a hole in the hull of my 1946 wooden Thornycraft. Well, get on that. I don't know how it's planked. I'm assuming it's a carvel plank boat. It's just made of wood. Wood grows on trees. It's getting harder to find good wood. We all know that. But yeah, that's the beauty about wooden boats. You can fix it. Brian asked people hit the like button. Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that. Hope people do. This is now coming in faster and faster. Can you go through a quick walkthrough, please? What? Do you think I'd have to include that? Oh, Susan, thank you very, very much for the gift. That's very, very kind of you. This is now moving faster than I can keep up with. Hello, Paul. Great to join you on Boxing Radio. It's great to join you too. The only solution to bone-numbing cold in Queensland, of course, is Merry Xmas from Mark, Queensland, Australia. The only solution to bone-numbing cold is yes, of course, it is Queensland. Yes, I have family in Australia, and they're plenty warm right now. Stefan, how are you, Stefan? Glad Victoria has some snow. Makes me feel like Ottawa doesn't suck so bad. And it's really cold. Just on the cold, we're heading for something called an Arctic outflow. When you live on the coast of British Columbia, you have these huge mountains between you and the rest of the country. And every once in a while, a huge chunk of cold air decides to pour down the various valleys and fjords and pour right into Vancouver and Victoria and make it really, really cold here. Well, we're shooting for almost a week of -6 to -8, which is extremely cold for here, especially when it's sustained and doesn't come above 0 during the day. More on that in a bit. Let me see if I can catch up a little bit more here. Cheers, Ian. Am I enjoying the snow? Well, it just landed overnight, and all I really did was sleep in and get set up. So it'll be lovely for a little walk after this. Do we have a mod in the chat? We've got some spam coming in, says the Digital Mermaid. We don't have a mod. I've never actually experienced spam on here much. It's one of the things I'm very lucky about on this show. Very, very little spam on the whole. I'll see if I can figure that out. I suppose that's something I have to look into someday. Anyway, way too much information. Peter, been a pleasure to watch you getting here up and running. Hull, it was epic. Yes, it was. Let's see what we got. All the best. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me see if I can catch up a little bit here. I'm caught up. William says all the best from sailing vessel Regatta in Esquimalt. Oh, hello. You're nearby. Excellent. So the cold and heat. So one of the things I wanted to talk about and I thought might be interesting. Yes, it's very cold. And the boat currently doesn't have a native heating system. Yes, I heat with a couple of electric heaters that look much like this. By the way, I don't want to endorse this, but this particular Noma brand heater, if you can get this where you are, is the quietest, nicest, greatest little heater I've ever had. It's on right now, and you can't hear it, I'm assuming. Anyway, so at about 10 amps a piece, I have 2 of those, and then hot water, another 10. But that's right on the edge of the 30 amps that I can get off the dock. And in winter, what happens is all the boats around me are also using as much power as they possibly can, so the voltage drops. In other words, the wiring in the marina is, well, I'm not saying it's substandard, but it's long runs, and as the current goes way up, the voltage will drop a little bit. Well, what that means is your devices still want the same amount of power, so you actually get less effective energy out of that. So 30 amps is really pushing it. So what I do really is I actually run heat off my hot water heater. Water heater, for those of you who object to hot water heater. In other words, I take another little loop with a small circulating pump and a couple of those bus heaters so that I can actually extract heat off the hot water system. Because one of the things about a hot water heater is it's just sitting there ready to suck back 10 amps whenever it feels like it. So all the times it's not sucking back that 10 amps. That 10 amps sort of has to stay in reserve, which means it's not available to you to heat your boat or do anything else. So if I'm using the water heater to also heat the boat, that's very effective. And that's a segue into how the boat will be heated eventually. I will soon, eventually, sometime in the distant future, have a Webasto or similar small diesel hydronic boiler. Pretty common around here for that sort of solution. In fact, you walk up and down the docks and you can hear them humming away. They're not silent, but they're quite efficient. And over a hot air system, the hydronic, the hot water, means that I can heat radiators, bus heaters, I can heat my hot water. I can preheat the engine if that ever had to be, but I don't really think that's an issue. And one of the most important things I can do with it, I can run a loop of hot water underneath the tanks, the water tank, the gray water tank, and the black water or the holding tank, which are under the cockpit sole. Now, in some boats, you might say, well, why are they out there? They're at risk of freezing, because largely boats in the Pacific Northwest don't worry about freezing so much, and it was more convenient. Anyway, but because we are going to have these cold weather, and I expect someday to be cruising in other cold weather, can you read up in Northern Europe somewhere, I need a system to make sure that they don't freeze. In fact, right now I have a heater on their electric heater keeping all that warm. The downside of that is there's one heater less in the cockpit. So there's a quick overview of what heat will be in the future. And of course, the great thing about the Webasto is it's diesel and I have heat while I'm cruising. All right, let me catch up with what's going on here. Just a few minutes. Rain extra windows. Yes. Yes, I probably am going to do that. I even have some that I use on my Land Rover. The Digital Mermaid just sent an email to Harbor West hoping to get a slip this coming season. Well, that would be great. Scott wants a quick walkthrough. We could probably manage that. I have lost update on this iPad. I'm going to have to do a refresh, and I don't know why this won't let me do that right now. It's in some kind of unhappy mode. You'll have to excuse me, folks. There we go. It's happy again. Let's see. Trying to catch up where we were. Okay, a quick walkthrough. Yes, we can do a quick walk. What's to see? Let me take you off of here. Well, we're in the wheelhouse. You've been here before. So basically this is where, some of you have been watching a while, there will be a large dinette system here in the not too distant future, which is basically the spring, hopefully, the helm. As you're familiar with the helm and the new instrument cluster, which worked out really well. Starboard side here, this will all be the galley coming across here, and I'm really excited about that. So if we go aft, for those who haven't been on the boat or haven't seen it, I have my bed port side in here, a little seating area, and my big wardrobe, and then the door that goes out into the cockpit. Should we go outside? Oh, yes. Well, it's basically chilly and cold and outdoorsy out here. One neat thing I think I may have mentioned is that I'm now at the very end of the dock. The upside of that is a great view. The downside of that is all the weather comes in right on my stern. Well, you might say, well, turn around, Peter, so that it's not on your stern. I just like the way the boat is set up, and it hasn't been a problem yet so far. Over here, you'll have to forgive me. There's a bit of a mess on what I call my credenza, some tools where I cook, some beer, coffee, and of course, the most recent addition to the boat. Do you really want to see the bathroom? There's the head. There. You saw it. Lovely. Okay, and then forward, well, I think I may only give you a very limited view of what's going on here because if you've seen around the corner of the last few episodes shot, it's a lot of storage up here. Okay, so if we come over here, we have the new panel, which I am just loving, by the way. Absolutely love it. And if I pan around, you have my little office where I do all my work, including editing, and then a ton of storage on the berth that's up in there. And yeah, it's just a problem right now. But there you go. That's the life of living aboard. Oh, and forward of that, there's another head eventually, but it's not in use yet. So I'm gonna put you down here for a second, plug you back in. I have a couple of things I want to talk about, but as usual, I should try and catch up on what questions might be out here. There we did the walk around. Hello, Dick. Greetings from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. How are you? Robert from Chile, Auburn, California. Can it be Chile in California? Username. I may be wrong, but it's highly unlikely. Hello, Peter from Edinburgh, Scotland. Hello, how are you? Matthew, hello. Loved your last electrical panel video and your content on Geordie. You have balls of steel. Well, I don't know. I may be just irresponsible, which is much more likely. Gustav, hello from Stockholm. I'm just going to swing right through here to see if there's actually any specific questions. I apologize if I miss saying hello to you. Peter, so how did you choose your dog's name, Geordie? That's a very interesting question. He just seemed like a Geordie. I didn't know the name very well, and I only barely understood the connotation of people from the northeast of England. And so I didn't really know what a Geordie was. It's strange, at that time I actually had an employee working for me named Geordie, spelled differently with a J. And he always said, "What'd you name a dog after me for?" But I didn't. I think that the family just sort of collectively came up with it. I honestly can't remember exactly the moment it happened, but it stuck, and he just seemed like a Geordie, and I'm so pleased he did. And it means I got this great name for my boat. John, glad to hear you're in a bubble. Merry Christmas to you and Lady Z. Thank you ever so much. I'll pass that on. Merry Christmas, Peter, from Kevin. Hello from San Pedro, California. 1978 36 Grand Banks Classic. Lovely, lovely boats. I'm sure you enjoy it. Just running along. Ardo yesterday was in Western Finland with over 60 centimeters of snow. Oh, that reminds me of times back east. Very, very, very deep snow sometimes. Looking through to a few people. Oh, Brian Starr, thank you ever so much for the gift. A few beer tokens for you, Peter. Have a great day. Looking forward to great projects in 2022. And so am I. Get a coal stove and get used to what you'll have to do when you get to the UK. You know, it's funny. I am so looking forward to a coal stove in the UK. The various shows I watch, obviously Cruising the Cut and a few other narrowboat YouTube channels. One of them from way back was this young fella from Wales. Sort of Interesting was the name of his channel. Anyway, he's just the sweetest guy. And this young woman now who's in Leeds on It's Untraditional, also a nice little show. She hasn't updated in a while, but it's just, it seems the lifestyle living aboard the canal boats is absolutely lovely and exactly in tune with where I'll be when I'm, well, a little older, and which is coming, but it's definitely coming. And I love the idea of a coal stove. I don't know if we'll be allowed to burn coal in 20 years, or I just, who knows. Anyway, let's see, how about a diesel stove? Friends in their CNC think it worked great. Diesel stove, when you say diesel stove, do you mean a diesel cook stove? And because I won't get a chance to see your answer, I'm gonna assume that's what you mean. A lot of boats here in the Pacific Northwest have Dickinson diesel stoves. In fact, MV Zephyrs had one in her when Lady Z first bought it. They're a great stove. A lot of people swear by them. I have never seen one that isn't slightly temperamental and doesn't smell. So it just didn't seem a good option for that boat at the time. And for those same reasons, I must admit, I like cooking with gas. It's very convenient. I know I'm gonna have gas on the boat at least for a while, depending on what happens with propane. And when I get to Europe, butane. But I understand you have butane and propane in Europe. I gotta figure that all out. So no, I just don't like the diesel cook stoves. And I may be wrong on that. I know there's some new ones that some friends have talked about that just heat a plate underneath somehow, and there's absolutely no smell inside. And maybe they're great, but I'm happy with propane. Plus, I already have a brand new propane cook stove. John, I fitted a cheap Chinese diesel heater on my boat, so impressed that I only use 2 amps. Probably a diesel hot air furnace. And yes, they're probably great. You could probably buy 3 and keep 2 as spares for less than a genuine Webasto one costs. I just don't want hot air. I want hot water. And I haven't seen a cheap Chinese hot water boiler yet. Let's see what we got here. I'm way behind. I'm trying to get caught up with Peter says need to run a loop under your bunk. Well, I already have that sorted. I'm addicted to heated mattress pads. I've had a heated mattress pad under me since 25 years, especially in the Airstream. It was lovely, and here I love it. Turn it on during the day. The bed is toasty warm when you get in, and then just set it for whatever you want overnight. I actually love sleeping in cool air with a warm bed. And in fact, I have a window right over above my head and bed, and I often crack that open. So that generally looks good. Hello from Cambridgeshire, England. We have I've never known how to pronounce this. Eberspachler. I've never known how to pronounce it. I know it's the other diesel heater that's very simple, similar to the Webasto. There's the Webasto, there's another one, and there's a few that are very, very similar. Scott, do you have heating blankets tonight? Yes, as I just mentioned, I have that heating pad underneath. Hi, Robert, and cheers, Landry. Woodhull boats in salt water, outside water temperature, could likely never freeze. Should always have outside water temp displayed. You will know likely never get below freezing in your location. No, absolutely not. Certainly here or anywhere I intend to cruise in salt water. Some little bays on the east coast of Canada actually freeze, just a little skiff on the top. You have to be a little bit careful if it gets heavy because you don't want to be crushing the boat, but on the whole I don't worry about outside water temperature anywhere I intend to go, at least for now. Susan Melda, would love to hear some more music from you, Peter. You know, it's funny you mention that. I have tried so hard to just settle in to write a couple more tunes. And I actually had a few in the can that I did over the last little while, but weren't really happy with them. So yes, I'm going to make an effort to make more music, not just for here, but just in my life. I've wanted to be a musician all my life, and I never really have been able to, you know, get to a critical mass with that. So that's something I'm working on. Go for Kev. Not to make you pull them out, but how about a guitar tour? Well, go for Kev. I'll just give you a quick rundown, and for those others, including maybe Susan, who's interested, I'm not much of a musician, but I'm an instrument junkie. There are a ton of instruments on this boat, just because I like to think in time I will slowly settle into them. Plus, they're awesome when you have a few people aboard. I have neighbors all around me that when they come by or they've borrowed, I have an accordion, a proper accordion, which I can't even noodle on, even though I can sort of noodle on the piano. He had it for a while and had fun with it. So in terms of guitars, I have a Guild Dreadnought Archback in mahogany, which is I love that guitar. It is a guitar that was given to me by my father when I was 15 years old. It had been previously owned by a few significant folk players in Canada, actually. I'll probably get into this in detail in some future episode. I have a National Jumbo, which was my father's. He had it long before I was born. It needs some work because it was a bit neglected, but it's to me it's the guitar that I think of when I think of guitaring, because my father played it, and almost tearing up here. Anyway, some of you may have seen a photo I may have posted over time with a young fellow playing that guitar to a baby. Well, the baby is me, and the young fellow is my dad in London in 1963. Anyway, it's a meaningful guitar to me. I have a really nice old banjo that is a collection of bits, but quite nicely done and quite old. I have bagpipes, some of you may know. I have a violin on board. I have a ukulele, which is actually my daughter Erin's. I have a djembe drum, the African drum. I have a boron, the Irish drum, that Lady Zephyrus bought me. Anyway, the list goes on and on and on. So more music. What do we got going here? Go for Kev. Okay, there's that. Happening Boxing Day. And our fishing boat been restored to a museum boat in berth in the time in St. Peter in Geordie Land. Well, that sounds really nice, Peter. I have to get this to refresh again because it's jammed. Holly, the cafe boat is well worth a watch too. I'm going to look into that. I've heard that before and I've lost track of that. The other brand of heater is Wallace. You're right. Wallace doesn't actually make a hot water heater though. So again, that's that problem. In fact, they have a diesel cook stove. I would just love if that diesel cook stove had a water jacket in it. So while it's you can use it as a space heater. Anyway, there just doesn't seem to be a perfect solution there. Question from Dave Lee in Seattle. You said saltwater is better for wooden boats than freshwater. Why? I thought this was the opposite. Okay, this is a huge question, but it's pretty much universally accepted that saltwater will resist rot better than freshwater, and that's mostly proven by the fact that what we call sweet water or freshwater ingress, in other words, when rainwater leaks into a boat, the rot from that is drastic and severe. But the wooden boats below the waterline very rarely rot, actually from regular fungal rot. Now, there's other things that happen, iron sickness and delignification. There's all kinds of problems. The actual science of it, I'm just going to say salt. But other than that, it's pretty much universally accepted that salt water is much better for wooden boats. Just jumping, you can find China diesel heaters that heat water and air in the same unit, says Casper. Okay, I'll have to look into that. Craig, hi from Lancashire. I'm from Lancashire. Well, I'm not directly, my people are from Lancashire. From, well, I've forgotten the name of it, Pendle Hill. Anyway, what is your near future projects on MV Geordie? Okay, let's jump right into that. But I just saw come up, I should thank Mike Ersted. Thank you so much for the gift. Christmas present from Santa in Eagle River, Wisconsin. You've been a good boy. Well, I'm glad for that. Obviously, you don't have access to all the information. Okay, again, so future plans for projects. I'm just going to touch this for a bit because it's one of the things I want to talk about today. Many of you will have remembered I've been talking about rebuilding the galley and the dinette here in the house, and that's really what I want to get into because it's such a pleasure to live in here when you really have a nice space. This space, I just love this wheelhouse. All the bright windows, the sun comes in. It's a lovely place to sit and eat and live. So I want to improve that. Some of you will also remember that I had a mock-up of the galley and a mock-up of the dinette over time, but they had to be both gutted to do the huge amount of work I did in the wheelhouse last year, this last year. So I'm going to get going on that. Not unfortunately, I'd like to go straight to the final rather than rebuild a mock-up. I'm pretty sure I have the design completely set. It's quite complex, especially for the dinette. So it's going to be a project that's going to be more than a few episodes. It'll probably be the bulk of the remaining of the winter. But I'm really excited about it. It's going to be slow going. Part of the reason is because I have to go up the gorge every time I want to do extended noisy work. For those of you who are not familiar with that term, I'm now in a really lovely marina with really lovely neighbors, and I'm limiting my noise and dust production to a minimum. So I take the boat because it's mobile and I drive 15 minutes up a narrow waterway. I should give you a link sometime, but if you ever want to Google Earth Victoria Harbor, up under Johnson Street Bridge and up through the upper harbor, you eventually get to what feels like almost a rural river. It's an extraordinary place, actually. I think it's vastly underutilized. Don't let anybody go there. And I can anchor there up against a park where there are no people, certainly in winter, that would be bothered by a little bit of noise. And I'll do my carpentry in the cockpit under the new canopy that some of you saw me build. So that's going to slow down production a little bit to work that way, but I'm still okay with that because it's sort of fussy, slow moving stuff. Okay, so that's this carpentry. As many of you know, I did that massive haul out last summer. I'm hoping to do another shorter, not so massive haul out this spring because of course I only did the major work through the middle of the boat in the wheelhouse area, which was where by far the most dramatic work needed to happen. I would like to do the work in the forecastle, which is actually going to be quite simple, and in the cockpit, in other words, underneath the water tanks, underneath the cockpit sole, this spring, and get those settled, which means I can also finish the cockpit. I never finished the cockpit sole because the tank setup wasn't, anyway, there's lots to be done there. That will give me the ability next winter to finish off the forecastle into a nice cozy little guest cabin and have guests aboard, which would be nice, and not worry about the cockpit too much. And then the final haul out will be to do all that same work in the aft cabin. In other words, everything from this bulkhead to the door. And that also will be relatively straightforward, with the exception of working underneath the bathroom fiberglass nest. Anyway, whatever. So that takes us to about spring, about June, in terms of that one first haul out. Then the nature of this marina is that it's a winter program. You can only be here 8 months of the year. Well, you can be here all year if you want, but the price gets ridiculous to accommodate the summer tourist season over the 4 months of summer: June, July, August, September. Who knows what's going to happen this summer in terms of boating, but in principle, I have to be out of here for that period. It's perfect. I'll go cruising for those 4 months and continue to work on the boat. I will be cruising more in a sort of lifestyle cruising rather than vacation cruising. So I'll be taking my time, staying places longer, seeing friends all over the place, and continuing to work on the boat over the summer, probably woodwork. The most significant thing I want to do in that period of time is to rebuild the bridge deck, windshield, and handrails and stanchions and all that. Some of you may have noticed the big rotten hole in the side of the sort of upstairs windshield. Well, it's actually has been rebuilt at some time in cheap plywood, and it just isn't going to last. Well, it hasn't even lasted this long. It's garbage now. So that's a pretty significant job, which means rebuilding that windshield and rebuilding all that, plus some modifications to the way the cabin side works, and continued improvements on the decks and waterproofing and stuff like that. So if I can get that done over the course of the summer, and then of course keeping up with brake work, which I'm generally on top of now, which makes me very happy. That'll take me into coming back here next fall. I only say that because it's part of the upcoming year. And when I get back here next fall, I will carry on in the forecastle. So there's a year in a nutshell. Let's see if that actually happens that way. Let me have a look at some questions. Here we go. Jump back. The music rocks are high from Scrim. How are you? I can see Victoria here. 9 inches of snow. How you doing? Yeah, you're not from here at all. John, give us a quick folk song on the guitar, Peter. I don't think I'll do it right now, but thanks so much for your interest. I appreciate that. Peter Nisbet asks, were you born in London, Peter? I was born in London in 1962 in what was then Paddington General Hospital in the borough of Paddington, and the building is gone now. So it's kind of interesting. Well, from what I understand, it's gone now, the old hospital, and it's been carried on into another hospital. The digital marmot, maybe an extension. The beer of the week could be song of the month. Oh, you're sweet. Yes, it's what I always wanted to do. Remember, can I keep it a secret that I'm really trying to build a pub that I can live in? Yes. So the beer of the week should be like, anyway, I'm looking at ways to make it a little more inclusive that way. But of course, these days, inclusive is a difficult thing to pull off. Honestly, I have to say your name now so I can comment on your comment, but I've never been able to pronounce this, I'm sure. Gentleman with a black hat, Pfalzgraf. That's what I'm going to call you from now on. Looks like the thing jams every time there's a donation comes in. That may be possible. Maybe it insists that I see it or something. I don't know how that works. Anyway, carry on. Were that born in London? Yes, I was. What's become of my daughter's cooking channel? Asks Nick Scott. What's become of it is a very busy PhD student who is now traveling all over, working with many interesting companies, doing very interesting work. That's as far as I can go with that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see her appear again in video of some sort, but I certainly can't say. It was a joy to see both my daughters just I guess it's a month ago when I was in Halifax, and catch up with them, because with what's going on these days, you never know when I'll see them again. Phil Scott, you and Ladies Evers in a relationship, really good friends. We're really just good friends. What else we got here? I saw Do I Love Living on a Boat. I got to find that. Joe, I absolutely adore living on a boat. I've probably wanted to live on a boat my entire life. I've actually lived on a boat in Victoria when I was a kid with my mother when my parents first broke up. We came out here, etc., etc. We lived on a small 20-foot sailboat for a year. I loved it. It had always been a plan of mine to repatriate to the UK and live on a canal boat or possibly a river-style boat or gosh knows. I've been a sailor all my life. My father was an avid sailor. Our family were sailors. When I was a young kid, my father and his friends built fast homemade catamarans, and we moved from there to small cruisers. The Siren 17, if anyone of you know that boat, was our first family boat. 17-foot Van de Stat and Magruer sailboat, quite good value. We bought it brand new at a boat show when I was about 8. Lost my mind. It was incredible. Moved on from that to a Tanzer 22. Any Canadians or Northeast Americans probably quite familiar with the veritable Tanzer 22. Great little, very economical cruiser, which I have sailed all over the east coast of Canada, all through the Canadian canal system, Nova Scotia, up into Bedore Lakes, etc. Moved on from that to a Freedom Catcatch 28, which is a little carbon fiber masted catcatch, unstayed, sort of like a non-such. Splendid boat. Sailed that boat all over the Great Lakes, down through the Seaway to out into the ocean, out at the Gulf St. Lawrence. It was a fantastic boat. After I left home and wasn't a kid in the family anymore, my dad bought a Niagara 35 sailboat, which was his boat when he passed away, and it wasn't a boat that I wanted to live on, so I opted not to go that route, because by that point I knew I wanted a wooden cruiser. I thought it would be in the UK, but when I discovered these boats out here, the Monks in the Pacific Northwest, I said, that's what I gotta have. So I absolutely adore living on a wooden boat, living on a 40-foot. Oh, by the way, this is actually a 40-foot boat. I don't know if I've mentioned that. On all the build papers for this boat, it's a 38-foot boat. But the marina went and checked the length of it to make sure I didn't fib about how big it was. And it turns out I did. It's 40 feet long. I've never measured it. For whatever reason, MV Geordie just grew 2 feet, and I actually didn't get to appreciate it. I only pay for it. Anyway, so living on a 40-foot wooden motor cruiser is a castle. I mean, compared to, and I'm not knocking sailboats, compared to a sailboat of the same size, it is much more spacious, much more comfortable. Of course, at a huge trade-off with capability offshore, etc., etc. So I just love it. I absolutely love it. Anyway, let me carry on with what's going on here. Don says, I like the digital mermaid idea, which I believe is to add more music, so hopefully I will. Gord, hi from Montreal, my old stomping grounds. How are you, Gordon? Mark, I installed a Planar hydronic heater last spring and I really like it. It's plumbed to make hot water while at anchor. Service is based in Surrey, BC. I've heard of them. I should revisit. Thank you ever so much for mentioning that, because I should revisit that heater. Life in a Nutshell in Australia is interesting as well. It is. I follow them actually. And they also have a separate food channel, food and beer channel. Interesting. I haven't been up on it lately, but we'll see. Optic Craft, if you bring the boat to England, then the Suffolk and Norfolk Broads would be a great choice. Oh my gosh. When I was 14 years old, my parents and I traveled to the UK, and I'm an avid reader of the Arthur Ransom series, Swallows and Amazons. To those of you who have only heard about the first book, well, there's a bunch of books, and 2 of the books, Coup Club and The Big Six, are based in Norfolk Broads, and I fell in love. That's probably where I fell in love with the idea of living on a boat. So I love the Broads. I got to drive a teeny little, beautiful, sweet little wooden day launch, Roxham to Horning and up through Potter. It was absolutely heaven. So yes, I'd love to have the boat there. Of course, this boat is too big for many of the smaller bridges, but still, I'll get it there. Are you going to do the upper deck helm? Asks Fowles Graf. Again, yes, I definitely am. That's what I mentioned a few minutes ago. The upper helm has got to be completely rebuilt this summer. John asks again, Susan, did you just... Thank you ever so much. It just popped up again. Thank you very much, Susan. Cheers to the pub idea. So perfect, please do it. Definitely is the plans. to extend on that, I don't want to be vague about that. When I finally do cruise and come to get to see all of you people, assuming that that's possible, I'm very much hoping to just, I'm a very social person. I'm an extrovert. I need to have people around me. I need to, have that kind of experience. So I'm hoping to have guests aboard almost perpetually. That's what the forecastle guest cabin is for, and the extended space in here and the bridge deck. So it is my fantasy to travel as much of the world as possible in a coastal cruiser and meet people and have them aboard and make music and have good cheer. So there you go. That's my life in a nutshell. Let's see if that works out that well. So you like marmalade like Paddington Bear? I love marmalade, but it has to be really, really good marmalade. Over 400 watching by the time I watch this. Awesome. That's really great. Will I ever get another dog? That's an excellent question. And seeing as we've been talking about my future possibly on a narrowboat in the UK, I think I would suit a small little dog to walk with me along the towpath to the pub. I think that would be perfect. Between now and then, I don't know. I did a lot of traveling with Geordie and it was wonderful. And I was so grateful to have him for so much of that. But there are a lot of limitations, especially with a larger dog, with traveling. And I have to keep one huge thing in mind. If I get a dog in Canada, it's going to have a serious limitation on repatriating to the UK. It's a little bit complex to bring dogs into the UK. So I think the short answer is no, not until I get repatriated to the UK. Peter, did you ever sail in Hamilton Harbor? Asks John Sharp. I'm not quite sure I know where Hamilton Harbor is. I'll keep an eye in here to see if you mention it. Lee asks, Peter, if you have moved to the UK canals, could you actually part with MV Geordie? Wow. Yes, because by then I'll be old and feeble. I imagine by the time I'm cruising the European rivers and canals with Geordie, I will be aging. I'm 59 now and I feel like I'm 26 so far. So let's look into the future. At a certain point, handling a boat this size single-handed may get to the point where it's beyond what I'm comfortable with doing. I just don't know. I'm just trying to think of a long-term plan, and it seems to me that my final years tottering along to the pub, as I mentioned with my little dog, is a fine way to retire, and I think a narrowboat in the UK would be perfect for that. So yes, at that point, Geordie will have moved on to someone else that would love a boat like this. The boat will probably still be in Europe somewhere or in the UK. It'll be a UK registered vessel. I don't think I can justify the cost of returning it to the Pacific Northwest, although that's sort of a fantasy. Like it's done all its traveling and now take it home and let it finish out its years in Victoria again. Of course, that will be an immense expense. So who knows? You can see the problem I'm having. So there you go. Sailing, Delfino asks, if I lived on a 35-foot sailboat, I hope I haven't upset anyone with my comments about motorboats versus sailboats. I love sailboats. Yes, I spent an extended amount of time on a 35-foot Niagara sailboat, which I adored. I absolutely loved it. And I love sailing. I'm a sailor. I've been sailing all my life. I just love sailing. And it's the biggest thing I'm missing is just the act of day sailing. Long passage making? And I haven't done a transatlantic or anything, but sailing around the east coast of Nova Scotia and the Gulf of St. Lawrence, I'm not really a sit and watch the auto helm all night looking out for icebergs type of guy. I watch Drake Paragon, a great show, and it's cold. Anyway, I just that kind of sailing, that expedition type of sailing has never really appealed to me. Island hopping in the Caribbean or some other really hot place, beach to beach, strangely enough, and I'm not knocking it because it must be awesome, is not really my kind of boating. I'm an urban person. Rivers and canals between ancient European cities, that's what I want to do. So a motorboat suits that. So please don't anyone feel that I have anything against sailboats. It's the wants and needs I have. Plus it has to be wood. Stephen Freeman, can you find pubs on the side of rivers and canals in the UK? Yes, I can find, yes, I can. I know, I'm very, very fond of that. Stiffwood, is the same year your parents dragged you to the Broads and fun boating. My parents dragged me around the whole of Britain in a bus. That's why I'm still landlocked. That's very true. Peter, did you shoot the bridge yourself at Potterheim? Yes, I did, as a young lad. But it was like a 14-foot, maybe 18-foot long motor, little wooden motor cruiser. It was just the sweetest thing. Put, 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 put. And I just went up the middle. It didn't seem that complex. This is just shooting by now. I apologize. I'm going to have missed a lot of stuff because I can't figure it out how far this went. Here we go. Sorry, I think I'm caught up. John, why didn't you tell them that the boat has swelled 2 feet? Well, I guess I could have told them anything. I was mostly flabbergasted. I had to come back out with my long tape measure and confirm it. Here we go. Vessel length doesn't usually include swim platforms and bowsprits, but marinas do. That's true. I'm paying for 42 feet because I have a 2-foot swim platform. Someone told me that some old Pacific Northwest measurement of a boat is from the stem to the rudder post, which on this boat would be about 38 feet. So maybe that's why. I don't really know. When do you think you'll do the Great Loop? Asks Richard. Another excellent question. Most of the remaining work I need to do to the boat, I can do to the boat while cruising, with the exception of the 2 haulouts I need to fix the remaining frames. Everything else I would do while cruising. So if the world was really in normal conditions right now, I would slam through those 2 haulouts this spring, next spring, and immediately after that haulout, ship the boat to Thunder Bay and start the Great Loop. I would. I just don't think the world is going to be ready for that by then. So I can't say that living here is unpleasant. It's incredibly wonderful. And there's still things I want to do here, and there's still cruising I want to do here. I want to cruise Puget Sound. I want to cruise down into the States and down that way as well. So I think I'm about 2 years, maybe even 3 years out from starting the Great Loop. So there you go. Mo asks, I'm 59 now. How old are you, Peter? We are both 59. Something. They always tell me to say something. There you go. Okay, Daryl. Diane, Foxes Afloat, Tilda Queen, and Candace Bennett are also great channels. There's so many. I've seen Foxes Afloat. Very funny sometimes. Gord asks, when you worked full time, did you live on the hard? And if so, was it tough to downsize the boat to full liveaboard? I've only been living on this boat. Well, geez, it's not only, it's going on 7 years since 2015. So 5, 6, 7, 7 years. Before that, I traveled for 3 years in an Airstream and worked pretty much full time at that point. I was still doing architectural design, 3D animation, and software development, and I did all that on the road. Before that, I designed and built custom homes and did software development and lived in a house, a very large house in Nova Scotia, and it was splendid. And it was a perfect time for me because I was raising a young family, and it was perfect. So in terms of working full time and living on a boat, I could do it. Lady Zephyrus works full time and lives on a boat. Many people around me here work full time and live on a boat. You just have to set aside enough little office space to do something like that. The work I used to do in design and visualization and software development has all sort of faded away. If you've been watching long enough, I've talked about this before. So other than a few design jobs I'm still doing for legacy clients, my job now is looking after you folks, and I'm enjoying that wonderfully. Michael, hi Peter, Merry Christmas for a long-time viewer from Melbourne. Thanks so much. Hamilton Harbour, Lake Ontario. It's jumped again. West Lake Ontario. I may have. I've come through from Lake Erie through the Welland Canal. But I think I shot straight across from the canal. You know, I skipped all of like Hamilton. And I went straight to Toronto. So if it's Hamilton, the city of Hamilton Harbour, of course I should know where it is. No, I've never been there. I'm pushing really hard to get my boat repowered and start sailing before I get too much older. Seeing your age climb is a hell of a motivator to get on with the adventure. It certainly is, the Digital Mermaid. It certainly is. And I mean, it's just been an unbelievable thing getting repowered. So if you can pull it off one way or another, it makes a huge difference to the round it. Then Scooter, tell us your top 5 YouTube shows you watch. Isn't that a classic? Well, okay, awesome. Well, of course, Leo, with Samson Boatwork and Tally Ho. I'm not saying I watch it completely faithfully, but it's a great show. He's a great entertainer. He's a great presenter. I love the project. I love everything about what he does. I wish he'd do more illustrations. Wasn't that when he did the illustrations? Anyways, amazing. After that, I watch, I watch Cruising the Cut, which I really, really enjoy. Again, I don't watch it faithfully. To be fair, I don't watch much YouTube completely faithfully. I'm watching Ship Happens in the UK because I just find it such a humongous project to try and get that boat going again. Sailing Yaba, I love it because I just love the sort of culture of fixing the boat in that country. I think is just amazing. I've abandoned almost all the big sailing channels, Vagabond, Delos, all that stuff. I'm sure they're all doing amazing things. It's just another world for me now. It's not all that meaningful for me now. Sailing Magic Carpet, huge fan of Sailing Magic Carpet. I love their cruise up through the European canals, and they're nearby now down in Washington State and fixing up a gorgeous boat. It's become a DIY show for now, if those of you are not watching it. Great show, great people, and it'll be great to see what they do after they get this boat back together. A few other assorted stuff. You know, I have a good friend up here in on the coast here, Simon, with Finding Simon and that crazy Warren catamaran that he's fixing up. I have huge admiration for him because he just does stuff. Even if some stuff has to be redone and it doesn't go well, he just does stuff. And he hasn't lost enthusiasm, and that it's amazing to meet him in person and see the energy that guy has is fantastic. Anyway, so there's a few anyway. Stefan, great to hear your future plans. Having a pup is amazing. The companionship is unequal, but it also requires a full commitment and time. Nicely put, Stefan. Thank you very much, because I really miss him, but at the same time, it's not ideal. Best wishes from Prince of Wales Island, Southeast Alaska. Hello up there. Nobly Nobody. The best part of narrowboating UK is, as Annandale, no hills, lots of pubs. Perfect. Exactly. John asked, what's the draft of MV Geordie? 3.5 feet. So on the whole, it's pretty good. Grendel, you are only ever a custodian of wooden boat. Absolutely true. Or there's other words that people, similar sorts of things. Wooden boats can potentially last forever. So if there's wood available and skills, and when I say skills, I don't want to knock all the brilliant shipwrights out there, but you can actually keep a boat in relatively good shape with modest skills. I'm not a shipwright. You know what I mean? There's no way I can take credit for some of the amazing work that's done on wooden boats, but you just manage and you ask questions and you get stuff done and you just take risks. So yes, they're pretty much gone. Scott asked if Digital Mermaid is Lady Zephyrus. No, I don't believe so. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure. Very cool. You make great videos. Thanks so much. Digital Mermaid has confirmed. Nope, she's in Southern Ontario. There you go. What do we got here? Peter, thank you ever so much for the gift. That's lovely. Thank you very much. How about a great circle tour? Bob asked, if you mean the Great Loop, down the Mississippi and up Angel Coastal and through the Seaway, that's what I have planned for the next big cruise. You know, some ambitious cruising. So that's that I'm hoping to do in the next little while. Joseph, no one knows what the future may hold. A lot more restrictions and controlled by Canadian, British, American. Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on. No doubt about that. Have you ever been on fiberglass speedboats? When I was a kid, we rented a cottage on Lake Medframagog, if any of you Canadians recognize that, in the Eastern Townships, east of Montreal. I lived in Montreal at the time. And we rented a cottage there where we mostly sailed, but there always seemed to be a couple of old 50s fiberglass speedboats around with fins. You remember those? And it was great. Like at 6 or 7, or I was allowed to take these boats up and down the lake, and the lake goes into the US at the bottom, and you can just run down there, and it was fun. It was fun, but no, I haven't done much fiberglass speedboating. It's probably awesome. Ship happens. Hey, how are you? Merry Christmas to you. Hope your project's going really well. I haven't tuned in a while. Susan, yes, Peter, come to the US, start in Port Angeles. Well, I probably will. Very excited about that. Really, really hoping that the world opens up enough that I can get to Port Townsend for the Wooden Boat Festival this fall. I mean, that is totally what I would love to do, and tour around down there. What do we got here? Peter, pleasure to watch your hard work aboard Geordie. Looking forward to the following adventures, years ahead. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thank you very, very much, Peter. Whoa, things are jumping around here. Gregory, your registered length is from the rudder post where the foredeck meets the stern post. Well, thank you very much. That's fantastic. So I know that now. That's why the boat is called 38 feet, but actually 40. That's good to know, Gregory. Thank you very much. Ship happens again. Is there anything you wish the world done while you were out of the water? You would have done while you were out of the water? That's a great question. Some projects are much easier to do on the hard, out of the water. Yes, probably the bridge deck work, probably more deck work. I hesitate to say this, but I think I'm probably going to replace all the mahogany cabin sides. Yes, I said it out loud. Only because it's not very much work. It's making the cabin sides isn't really the problem. It's reconnecting them with the upper deck and the side decks and making it all happen together. But I have to rebuild the forward windshield because it's a mess. And by the time I fix all the problems with the cabin sides on the boat, I could have rebuilt them. So that's a project it would be really nice to do on the hard, or at least in a boat shed. But on the whole, I had nothing much else I had to do. Scott, love the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Is it real? Thank you for the walk around. It is completely real. It isn't quite a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. I mean, it's full on. I will admit that Christmas trees are a bit sparse in Victoria this year and expensive. And this one stopped drinking about a week ago, so it's going to be pretty needly fairly soon. I've lost track here again. Are you making your living only through YouTube now? Asked Joe. Not quite. I can't quite do that. YouTube, I'm amazed with what's coming along, but it's not quite a living yet. So I have to scrounge for design jobs here and there, and but that's fine. If it was wonderful enough that it expanded a little more, it'd be great. I'd love to get to the point where I could just survive on it so that I can then cruise perpetually, because design work does require me to stay nearby. This has just decided to shut off altogether. Here we go. Love the Charlie Brown tree. Okay, have you considered exploring some of the Columbia River? Absolutely. The only problem is getting there. I would love to go to Portland in the boat, but you know, from from here, it's out the Strait of Georgia, out into the Pacific, and down the coast to the Columbia River Bar, which, like any sane human, I'm terrified of, although I understand and I know how to manage bars. So yes, I'd love to. I think it's probably not all that likely because it's a long outside passage for a boat like this, and I think probably it's not going to happen, sadly. Oh, we made you top 5. Honored. We love you too. Thank you ever so much. It happens. Hugh, hi from Bonnie, Scotland. Well, hello to you too. Scotland is actually my next road trip. Another little cat out of the bag. I don't need my truck much anymore here, and I'm paying to store it. It's a fantasy that possibly next fall I will ship the truck to the UK do some UK road tripping, mainly up around Scotland and stuff like that, and leave it in the UK until I catch up with it later. That's just that. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Jim, marinas measure swim platforms so your boat didn't grow. Marina's just greedy. Well, they're actually charging me for the swim grid as well. So it's 40 feet plus 42 feet. And maybe there are greedy marinas. I have to admit, I am very, very pleased with, again, no association, but the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority, which runs this marina and a few other here in the harbour, is absolutely fantastic, especially considering where I was before. Happy holidays from Stockholm. Hello. Couldn't go without your channel, says John. Thanks so much. Craig, are you going to do some more cooking on the channel? Yes, in fact, I was going to do quite a bit of cooking in the last little while. I just haven't been able to pull it off. We have a fish chowder coming. We have a couple of things coming. So that's what the aprons are for. I have aprons now, so you'll see me in an apron in not too distant future. How much does it cost to ship your boat to Lake Superior? Asks Dino. I got a quote. Now it's a couple of years old, but I got a quote for $5,900 Canadian from a marina in Vancouver, which I can boat to a marina in Thunder Bay. And I found that very, very reasonable. It's a return haul. In other words, I have to just be waiting for a time that the truck will be empty in Vancouver to make the return trip. So I have to be able to hang around Vancouver with only a couple of days notice over a period of a month or so. And that's fine. I can easily do that. I have lots of friends in Vancouver I can hang out with. So if that raises several thousand more in the future, I can still cope with that because that begins years of new adventures before I save up to get the boat across the big pond. When in UK, drop by my workshop on the Thames in Wallingford. You've just listed my boat watch list of YouTube, so we are no doubt like minds, says Austin Dory. Well, very good. Thank you. I definitely will. Hello from, I don't know how to pronounce this, Kuopio, Finland, and Happy New Year 2020. Thanks very much. Web Tracker. Hey, how are you, Web? Got here late. Hello from very snowy Seattle. Michael asked if there's a new pup in your future. Not soon. I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's just more commitment than I can handle right now. Craig asked if I can overboard the cabin sides. Yes, I could, but I think that's just a recipe for disaster. One of the reasons I really want to redo the cabin sides is redo the windows in a completely different technique. I'd have to say, sorry, Ed Monk, that the design of the window setting is prone to leakage, and you're going to be constantly hunting leaks with these windows, which I've been doing. So I have an idea that I think is brilliant, because that's the way my mind works, to redo that in a way that I never have to worry about that again. And re-siding it, it's a huge job, and I don't know if I'll do it, but that would be perfect. Frank, hi from Portland, love everything Geordie. Thank you ever so much, I appreciate it. Mark asks, what are the plans for the New Year's? Well, if you didn't hear me mention a little while ago, I'm in a very tiny bubble of 4 people, Lady Z and I, and our 2 good friends. And so we're limiting it to that. We'll be aboard and a fine dinner New Year's Eve aboard MV Zephyrus, and a relaxed day of stuff on New Year's Day. I'm not sure entirely, but it's mostly eating and a little bit of drinking. Okay, folks, so watch the adverts before the video, full length. Oh, I see, it makes me smile. Well, thank you very much for mentioning that. Susan again, oh yes, Port Townsend Boat Festival would be amazing. We were going this year, but exactly. Here's to 22, we have the Boat Festival back. Yes, I hope so much. If you've been watching for a while, Lady Z and I drove the Land Rover to Port Townsend for the festival in 2019, and I was just blown away. Blown away by the boats, but also the town and the people. I want that to be part of my life before I leave this coast. Here's a promise. I'm not leaving the coast till I get to go to the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival. Okay. Nelson, Lake Simcoe, Ontario. Been around wooden boats all my life. My father had a 1964 40-foot Owens growing up. Love your channel and keep up the great work. Thank you ever so much. Nelson, let me see if I have any questions, because I'm way behind. Thank you for all the people saying thank you and Merry Christmas and all that. Any chance of a local meetup when COVID allows before you go off cruising, says Brian Lord. Absolutely. I had intended to have meetups and people aboard and little mini cruises and stuff all this time. But for 2 years now, it just hasn't been possible. I had even intended at the haul out to have a little meetup at the end, and it just, I didn't think it was responsible. So definitely, as I mentioned some time ago, this is running long. My intention is to meet as many people as possible because, well, I'm addicted to that. So hopefully meetups, soon. Salty Peter, what's the biggest crazy project, probably never going to happen, you have for Geordie? Wow, excellent. Cabin sides by far would be the biggest project I can think of right now. I suppose if I'm on this boat for another 20 years, I don't know, I suppose the center line, it's in good shape now, but you know, I don't think, I think it's probably fine, which is the keel. The stem, the keel, all the way through, might need replacing at some time, but I'm amazed how good it is. It's just the kind of project that would be so daunting that, oh my God, can you even do it? The bottom of the boat is good. All the planking, other than the garboard that I fixed and one more, is really, really good. The frames are really, really good. The stringers are good. The motor is awesome. The driveline is good. It's rewired, replumbed. Cabin tops, I have to re-fiberglass the cabin tops, the decks. It's not a huge job, it's just miserable. I would say the redoing the cabin sides all new in mahogany would be the biggest crazy job. Lee, majority would look great in the Caledonian Canal. I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would. Hopefully it'll be in lots of canals. Craig asks, do I ever do any fishing? You know, it's funny. Fishing is not part of my upbringing. I grew up in Montreal, downtown. I fished about 3 times in my entire life, and one of them was just casting a lead because I really didn't want to catch anything. I'm kind of I'm a bit fish squeamish, to tell you the truth, because the first thing I ever caught was a sculpin in Nova Scotia. The hook went in its mouth and out its eye, and my dad said, "Oh, you got to get that hook out." I don't fish. I'm not a squeamish person in general, but I haven't done much fishing. I've had the privilege of having fish come to me, filleted and prepared, and so yes, I don't do much fishing, and maybe I'll get into it. I'd love to. Now, prawning. I gotta get a heater, buddy, dude. Oh, should get a heater, buddy. Oh, I think you mean those buddy heaters. No, I'll never get one of those. Those are just the little heaters that, like, for camp and stuff like that. I don't think that's suitable for this boat. Hope to see you in Michigan. Well, I hope to be there. Let me just run through if I can get to some questions. Would I do it all again? What advice would you give someone looking for a wooden boat before pulling the trigger? Excellent question. I get quite a few people sending me messages asking about that and particular boats and stuff like that. The first rule of buying a wooden boat: buy it because you want a wooden boat, not because it's cheap. Because it's not cheap. Don't buy it because you need a cheap place to live or want a cheap boat, because it'll break your heart and possibly get you in trouble. So the greatest advice I could say is buy a boat that has had a good life. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, buy a shed kept, in other words, one that's been undercover, classic wooden boat made in the 50s, maybe the early 60s, not much later. The framing of the bottom changes in some ways for the better, but in some ways for the worse. Traditionally built carvel, which is just plank on frame. If you've been following along, you know that this boat has a hard chine at the bottom, which means it's a bit complex. I do not recommend buying these boats unless you are in love with the boat and or prepared to do some pretty significant work, which I've done, to keep them happy. Round bottom boats like MV Zephyrus and other boats built similar at the time, much easier to maintain and keep happy. It doesn't mean it's not worth it. I'm happy to have done it because I love this boat, but it's quite a bit, to think about. The actual living on a boat, just be prepared to have few things, which suits me perfectly. What I would do differently, do it sooner. Just do it sooner. It's like the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Well, likewise for many things in life, if you can find a way to get afloat sooner than later, just jump in with both feet. If you think you can manage it financially, and in terms of the work, if you're prepared to take on the work, just do stuff, just risk. just take risks, just do stuff, just try it. It can't go terribly wrong. Ask for help, and be prepared to do as much of the work yourself as you possibly can, because paying people to work on boats is very expensive. Although I'm so grateful that there are shipwrights out there willing to continue that craft, and I like to give them as much credit and business as possible. At the same time, you have to be able to afford it. So there you go. The first rule of buying a wooden boat, don't, says Bob. I'm sorry, Bob. I can't perpetuate that. I think wooden boats can be a lot of trouble, but they can also be an unbelievable amount of joy. So I hope you said that in jest. There's nothing more expensive than a cheap boat. Absolutely. Or as I often say, a free boat is too expensive. Salty asks, any electronics for navigation in mind to upgrade? Nope, one of these. This is an iPad Pro, which I run Navionics on, or I have friends, Lloyd, if you're out there, that suggest some more impressive software, and we'll play with that as well. I don't think I'll ever have a dedicated chart plotter or a dedicated MFD multifunction display. I don't think there's, I think if I just set this where it lives and bring you around to look at it, basically it just lives right there at the helm. Yes, these are your messages coming in, but normally this would be navigation equipment, and that's all I'll ever need. I may add to that radar at some point just to be responsible, but again, the radar data can come in over the iPad or another iPad. I'm sure there's lots of people out there who don't approve of that, and I think you should have dedicated navigation electronics. The other thing is, I'm not going to be navigating in precarious situations. I'm not long passages. I'm not offshore. I plan, unless I get into trouble, to always be able to see the shore and make sightings. So I'm not. The radar for me is even that's a little bit on the edge, but I'm happy to get it. I think it's a good idea, and I realize that AIS is not a replacement for that. I will get AIS, but again, it'll be on the iPad. So no major navigational electronics coming that I know of. WeG99, can you tell me that you paid for MV Geordie, and was it in fairly derelict condition? I paid $5,000 for this boat, which was $4,099 too much. But it was in a marina, in a place that I could live aboard right away. It was in what appeared to be very derelict condition. All the mahogany had been painted. The cockpit had been all fiberglassed over. It was full of mold. It was pretty horrible, but it was exactly the boat I wanted, and it worked out very well for me at the time. The motor might have worked. Turns out it didn't. Well, it did for a while, but it wasn't reliable. But a boat in that condition around here, at least at that time, you could have got for free. You can still get boats for free. As I said a few minutes ago, free boats are too expensive. So you're either going to pay now or pay later. You've all heard that before. So if you're thinking of buying a wooden boat, survey. Get professional opinions on it. Make sure it doesn't have some absolute tragedy of a problem with it that will break your heart and your bank. And these days can get you in trouble. Boats sinking at marinas or big oil slicks, it's ugly stuff. So yeah, having derelict wooden boats is pretty terrifying. After cruising around, bring on another 1,000 boat, exactly. After cruising around so far, is the new motor a good fit for your needs for future cruising? Oh my gosh, is it ever? Many people might have suggested, and in fact, I even was concerned if 60 horsepower was enough. And to be fair, the Beta 60 is only 56 horsepower. As far as I can tell, it is a perfect match for this hull. I've gone through various speeds. Some of you will have seen in one episode, I ran through some different speeds to see what I thought was the sweet spot. The theoretical hull speed and stuff like that. In fact, there's a fantastic episode by fellow YouTuber Todd Dunn from Maine, from the East Coast, and who was kind enough to do a propeller and hull analysis for me, and I meant to link to it in an upcoming propeller and gear and engine sizing episode. So Todd, if you're out there, it's coming, but I still haven't put that episode together. And but I think the results will be that the Beta 60 is absolutely the perfect engine for this boat. It's naturally aspirated, so I don't have to deal with turbo. It's small, it's tidy, it's efficient. Its fuel burn is less than a gallon an hour at hull speed. So I think it's perfect. I think the gear ratio, prop ratio turned out to be perfect as well. I'm so excited. But I'm going to do some proper analysis next summer when the hull is clean and I'm not towing the dinghy. Towing a dinghy has a huge hit because, of course, if you're towing a dinghy at 6.5 knots, you're 3 times its hull speed. So it's making a huge wake. So that has more than a small effect. So anyway, the answer is yes. Here we go. I gotta have a look here. How long have we been running on here anyway? We're at 2:15. We're well over an hour. I'm very grateful that you're all here. I don't know how many people still are, but I probably should consider wrapping this up in a bit. Let's make sure we answer a few more questions. Bob asked, I can say that about all boats, really. I've owned them in my life. Yes, of course, all boats can be a problem. And fiberglass boats, those of you who know that they can have some very, very ugly problems as well. So, can you do some more behind the scenes videos? That was fun to watch. I've been watching the main episode. I ask Susan again. Yes, I plan on doing more of those. Not just behind the scenes. In fact, I feel bad because that was a very simple episode. It was shot pretty much linear. It was easy. There was very little editing. I thought it would be a first touch-in. More complex stuff is I hope would be interesting, but it'd be hard to do a behind the scenes in one episode because it's actually much more work. So I'm going to expand on that and figure out how that all works. It's possible, and I'm speaking, and I apologize because not all of you are, but some of you out there are Patreons and supporters in other ways. And I'm looking at ways in 2022 to be more appreciative of my patrons. Sorry, I don't want to say that. I am very appreciative. I can't be more appreciative, but I'll give back a little bit. And we've over the years touched on, advanced videos, this and that and the other thing. So I won't do that, but I'm going to find some way to get some simple extra content out to the patrons, which will always be available to the general viewers as well later. But I'm not sure how that's all going to go, but there's going to be more behind the scenes, more stuff about the gear I use and how I do all that. I'm running Samsung tablets for nav. I can buy 10 of them for the cost of an MFD. Exactly, or 2 or 3 of them for the cost of an iPad, I know. But yeah, MFD's multifunction display, which chart plotter plus, are incredibly expensive for what you get. That's my belief anyway. If there's one thing about the boat you could change or add, why? Or love it the way it is? That's an excellent question. I have been plagued all my life by taking all the built environment around me and trying to massage it to be exactly what I want. Those sort of things, they can make a mess of your life. It didn't do my marriage much good. I'm living in a constant state of renovation. I have since I was in my late 20s. So if there's one thing I'd like to do, I'd sort of like to be finished, but at the same time, I love the work. So I have to find a balance, let's put it this way, where I'm living sort of a civilized life on this boat, but still being able to work on it as much as I want to. And I don't want to move off the boat to do the work. It's very important to me that I live. Whoop, I'm getting a message here. Oh no, that's fine. I thought maybe I was offline. So big thing to change about the boat. Very little. I don't have 2-footitis, which people say, oh, I always want another 2 feet. Well, I just got 2 feet, although I didn't get anything. I adore the forecastle and the guest cabin that's going to make with its nav station and a forward head. It's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. The wheelhouse, absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. I think I have a good setup for it. With the possible exception of I'd like a place for a stove, fireplace. Either a propane or possibly wood-fired, although I can't get insured in Canada with a wood-fired stove, but I like a fireplace. Lady Zephyrus has a little propane stove, and it's very, very nice, but I just can't find a place to put it, but I'm not done with that. The aft cabin, very pleased with the way it's going to be set up. The head has it's a shower. The whole cabin is a shower. That's great. The bridge deck area still needs some design work associated with the biminis back there. I mean, I say I love those crazy biminis I built, but I think I could do better. So major thing I would change about it, almost nothing. I'm looking around as if something's going to jump out at me. No, the boat's perfect, or will be perfect when I'm done what I want to do with it. So I hope that answers for them. Craig asked, "You sell any merchandise?" Yes and no. Just T-shirts, assorted T-shirts, and other things, which are at travelswithgeordie.com/store. There's a link in the description of every episode. There are new shirts coming in the new year from. I won't give it away. There's some lovely new shirts coming. Get another dog, says Robin, sometime. To finish, what's your dream boat if money is not a problem? What do you mean? This is my dream boat. Absolutely. This is my dream boat. I would not trade this for any boat I've ever seen. No Nordhavens in my future, I can tell you. Sorry, Nordhaven people. I love this boat. I love it because it's me. It's part of me. Everything in the built environment that I have an affinity to are things that have been touched by my person, ideally myself. I love handmade things. So this boat was built in 1953 by a crew of shipwrights, entirely built by hand. Houses built up until a certain point. I used to build custom homes, entirely built by hand. Yeah, we bought the windows and a few other things, but at one time, every single thing was made by hand. I love handmade things. I drive a car that was hand built in 1959. I find I can connect with things that I can imagine how they work, how they were modified, how they were fixed. I really have very little interest in mass-produced anything. Which comes to buildings, because of course I have a very keen set of opinions about architecture, boats as well, cars as well. I can't imagine just like what's going to be the last classic car. I mean, are kids going to be souping up Teslas in 2032? I don't think so. The last classic car, I don't know, can't imagine what it was. So there's a whole culture of like doing things with your hands and fixing things and modifying things that I think is going to be gone. So I think wooden boats are one of the last great ways to do that. So no more dream boats. I realized I kind of went off on something there, and in fact I went long enough that this rebooted. Love your energy, Peter. Keep it up. The best channel on YouTube. Thanks ever so much, John. I should again just run right through here and wrap this up because I can't imagine it's gone on this long. People must be getting fed up. Joe, I've been homesick with COVID. Streaming couldn't come at a better time. Stay safe. You know, Joe, I'm glad you said that, because in a way, the reason I wanted to do this because I realize a lot of people are missing out on a sense of connection, not only with me, but amongst each other in the comments. I thought it would be a good thing to do today. So thank you very much for saying that. The desire to create order and chaos. Susan, happy New Year to Lady Z. Amazing next year. Looking forward to the kitchen cooking and music. Hopefully visits. Yes, thank you for all providing a great episode. Thanks yet again, Susan. That's very, very kind. That wonderful. They modify Teslas now. They will always be a car culture. Excellent, Bob. I'm glad to hear that. I'm not really tied into it, so I'm not making a credible criticism. It's just something that sort of seemed like that. Peter says, yes, keep it up. Always a pleasure. Great. Don, thank you for all the entertainment and knowledge. Thank you all so very much. I think probably I should wrap it up. I'm very, very grateful. I didn't get half the things said I had planned to talk about, but that's the beauty of having an interactive discussion. What a wonderful thing the internet is, isn't it? Anyway, thank you all for joining in. Thank you all for your generosity, Susan over the top. And I hope you have a fantastic Boxing Day and holiday week. For those of you who get it off, for those of you who are having to work this week, thank you, because I'm very grateful for people who are looking after us under these conditions. Thank you again. See you soon. Episode next week. If I knew how to turn this off, we'd be